All right. Good evening, everyone. It's so great to be here. Thanks for joining us for this amazing session, or should I say, hangouts. This is the AfriLearn Hangouts. And basically, I'll just do a quick introduction of what AfriLearn is all about and why we're having this hangout. AfriLearn is basically um, an is an EdTech startup, education technology startup that integrates genius tutors, animators, and developers to provide highly affordable class education for Africans anywhere. Um, and we basically do this by bringing together a network of teachers into our studios. They record video lessons covering the entire curriculum, from start to finish, which leads us to creating thousands of video lessons. And these video lessons are developed into animation because from deep research, we found out that whatever children learn with pleasure, they never forget, and then such that at the end of the day, what a child or what a children in school what they are seeing basically when they are consuming the content are not just they're not only seeing their teacher teaching like they see in a normal classroom, but they're also seeing illustrations of what's being said per time on the screen. You know, because definitely whatever we learn with pleasure we hardly forget, especially for children. In addition to this, we also have class notes, gamified practice tests, detailed, powerful analytic tools, powered by artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of this on one platform, so that's what we have on the AfriLearn education streaming platform. Um, Over the years, gratefully, we've also been awarded different international and global awards. But for us, really, it's really about driving improved learning outcomes for children, primary, secondary school children across Africa. So and the reason why we're basically having these hangouts, which definitely is going to become a weekly thing, is to talk about the situation we are in Nigeria. Currently, as we speak, we actually have Nigeria has a population of over 200 million. And of this number, 40%, that's 80 million, can't read or write. 170%, that's 170 million, sorry, that's 85% of this entire population can't build or create anything meaningful. And what still our old and usual brick and mortar system, of course, while it will definitely remain, the truth of the matter is that it is absolutely non-sustainable and it is extremely expensive. It is also not high quality. So the truth of the matter is, so if we are to actually deliver quality world education for Nigerian students, we need to look beyond this brick and mortar system. We need to leverage it. The developed world have done this and they have results to show for it, and that's why we're basically having this conversation tonight. And of course, with me here, we also have some amazing, incredible guys who are chatting great courses, who are also doing amazing things in this space, in the education space, in the technology space, basically, and in the storytelling space. Because AfriLearn basically is made up of three different things: media, technology, of course, and education. So the software we built, the products we built, is basically powered by media content, video lessons, and a lot of software gamification tools, AI, machine learning, and the likes. Yeah. So briefly, right now, I'm just going to introduce our speakers, so that and then afterwards we're going to have each person's share basically for 5 minutes. Each person shares basically for 5 minutes, and then we'll have we'll open the floor for questions. So please, if you do have questions, do well to take note of them. Our speakers are on ground to answer every single question, and we are actually navigating the single biggest communication shift of the last 5 centuries. It is so monumental that it's radically transforming and disrupting, every sector across board. So it's either you are on the great side or you're on the downside, and well, as education is concerned across Africa, this is something that we need to talk about right now, and that's why we are basically having this conversation. All right, so joining me to tonight, we have okay, well, we're expecting one or two other speakers, but for now we have, all right, let me invite. All right, so for now we have Fola Aino. Fola Aino in the house. Fola Aino is an amazing guy. We met recently, exchanged exchanged basically we shared one or two things, and of course, when we did a little more study about him, of course, is someone who is doing incredible stuff in the education space. A nation builder, a scholar, a pace setter, impact multiplier. Someone who is also mentoring leaders. All right, so Fola will be sharing with us tonight um, regarding the power of education technology and how it can actually transform our realities as far as education is concerned in Nigeria and across Africa. We also have here um, of course, Gabriel Olatunji Legend, who is a co-founder at AfriLearn. And Gabriel is an amazing guy. Has vast experience in strategy, in content development, and if you've been to the AfriLearn platform, whether you've downloaded the app, the mobile app, or you are a user maybe on the web platform, and you've watched any of our animated, powerful storytelling video lesson, that's the guy behind every one of them. So he basically leads the entire content team at Afril and doing amazing work. Welcome, Gabriel. Um, of course, and we also have with us Tej, who is a foremost award-winning reporter with TechCrunch. Um, Tej, welcome on board. It's great to have you here. Sorry, can you guys hear me though? Can you hear me? Hello, can we hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, great. All right. So we move then. All right. So basically, and then of course, aside from Stage, we also have Toyosi Godwin. Toyosi Godwin is a writer par ex. Um, Someone that I've seen to be very a great forward thinker, in every sense of the word. Fantastic storyteller. Yeah. So basically, we're also expecting Judith Okonkwo. Judith is the founder of ARVR Africa. She's someone that I personally respect a lot, and interestingly, she's also one of our. She's excuse me. She's an advisor at AfriLearn. Oh, Judith is actually here. Yes, so it's great to have her here also. Okay, fantastic. All right, so I think the ground floor is set. Gabriel, do you have anything to move forward before I call the first speaker? Gabriel, are you there? Okay. Okay, if you can hear me, you can just go ahead. And I hope your Twitter space is not breaking because I've heard that from quite a number of people tonight. Okay. Gabriel, are you there? All right. So we'll basically start with one of our speakers to share, of course, basically to share about the theme of this hangout, which is basically education technology. What benefits does it bring to Nigerian teachers, Nigerian students, Nigerian schools, and even Nigerian parents? So we basically want to dissect, the power of education technology in Nigeria. Like right now during the pandemic was actually a significant period for us because that was when we released our MVP, classnotes.ng, which actually practically went viral. And that was when, more than ever before, our eyes were opened to this huge gap that we have, across the education segment in Nigeria, and the fact that like it or not, our education system is broken, And the interesting thing is that even if the government were to be super efficient, even if we had one of the most fantastic presidents right now, and we were to increase the budgets that we actually set for education, it still couldn't cater for the demands of education. So we need something more than just the government, more than just the government's intervention, and we need to leverage technology. All right. So basically, we're gonna start this conversation. I'm gonna call on Fola to open the floor. Um, so I'm inviting Fola to open the floor and share his thoughts. After which we would then have would also hear from Judith. Right. So Fola, you have the floor. Welcome again, Fola, and thanks for joining us.
Hello everyone. Good evening. Great to be here. Thank you so much, Isaac, and also thank you, Alfred, for putting this together. I trust that everyone is having, a great evening so far. So let me just get straight into it. The topic is one that is of particular interest to me because, I strongly believe in the power of education, and even more importantly, I believe that education should be made accessible, to everyone. And one of the primary ways of ensuring that everyone has a fair chance, of accessing quality education is through the deployment and use of smart technology. You know, so check for instance, in places where there's a difficulty with regards to, say, safe schools. All right, maybe due to conflict settings, a lot of children would be losing on the potential for human capital development by many years. Now, to bridge this gap, it really just makes sense, to deploy smart technology, like handheld devices, for instance, or say, imagine conducting learning experiences using local languages on a palm top, for instance. You know, so the opportunities are endless; they are without bounds. But how to harness the potentials embedded in these opportunities, I think, is the core issue. Having said that, also, this of course is not limited to just the students themselves, but also to the teachers, and of course even to parents. So take for instance again in environments where there are certain, inherent inhibitions to acquiring these kinds of opportunities, like say, the absence of steady electricity supply, and the likes. It's important that of smart technology, you know. So check for instance, in places where there's a difficulty with regards to, say, safe schools. All right, maybe due to conflict settings, a lot of children would be losing on the potential for human capital development by many years. Now, to bridge this gap, it really just makes sense, to deploy smart technology, like handheld devices, for instance, or say, imagine conducting learning experiences using local languages on a palm top, for instance. So the opportunities are endless; they are without bounds. But how to harness the potentials embedded in these opportunities, I think, is the core issue. Having said that, also, this of course is not limited to just the students themselves, but also to the teachers, and of course even to parents. So take for instance again in environments where there are certain, inherent inhibitions to acquiring these kinds of opportunities, like say, the absence of steady electricity supply, and the likes. It's important that these kinds of opportunities are tailored in such a way that they are made to suit these unique circumstances, that yeah, or well, unique peculiarities rather of each situational context, as the case may be. Now, going into free, um, technologically driven education, so like what we call EdTech, for teachers and for students. There are many, many platforms that offer these opportunities these days. And you just require some basic requirements, one of which is access to the internet, for a start, and also a device, whether it's a smartphone or a laptop, for instance. But the opportunities are boundless, they are limitless. It's very, very important to be able to actualize these kinds of opportunities in today's day and age, which is particularly driven by what we call the knowledge economy. Okay, so for people to ensure that no one is left behind, for leaders to also ensure that no one is left behind, it's imperative that this approach to education, is decentralized in the sense that it's made accessible for everyone. And that's where the deployment of these kind of tools, coming. Now, when I had my my first master's degree, and I had the privilege of studying in Seoul, South Korea. And if you know anything about South Korea basically is a country that in about the 1950s, 1960s, they had the same GDP per capita with Nigeria. Now, what they did was, again, I don't want to go too much into the history of the country, but something you can just read up very quickly. They're part of the Korean Peninsula, and so they had the war, and then the country split between the north, and the south. I studied in the south. The north is basically a no-go area, as you may be aware. Now, what they did was, because they understood the value of um, education, they needed to find a way to amplify the potentials embedded in education for their people. Because when the country split, after the war or during the war, they were left with an impoverished population that was mostly uneducated. Okay, so what they did was they began a systemic investment in technology, and also in the educational sector that helped to make education available for the mass for the majority of South Koreans. Now, last I checked, illiteracy rate in South Korea is about just 1%. It might have changed, but it's just about 1%. That's simply because, and that 1% is basically those who have chosen not to be educated. They just don't want to be educated. Okay, but the country has been able to achieve this monumental feat because of the way and manner in which it has invested in technology, and how it has been able to use this to make education available for its citizens. So I think it's important, that other countries that aspire to attain such heights begin to think about these things and begin to have this kind of conversation. But most importantly, think about ways in which they can deploy smart technology that makes education accessible. And there are many ways to do this. I mean, AfriLearn is already doing this, as pioneers amongst others. And it's important, that these strides, are capitalized upon and built upon. I'll just leave it at that, and happy to explain further when I get a second chance to speak. Thanks.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Fola. Thank you so much, Fola, particularly for even sharing about your story. I think that I find that very instructive, and one of the things that has worked personally for me is in terms of solving problems or achieving strides, is that success is basically replicable. If you find something working somewhere, there is a reason why it's working. And I just like the examples that you shared with those nations. I mean, developed nations who have results. Someone said only fools doubt proofs. They have results because they've invested in education, and not just that, they are leveraging actively, deliberately, purposefully leveraging technology, to make education affordably available for their populace. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. So basically, we have two people who want to ask you questions. But before then, I would like for us to take our next speaker, and then afterwards we will take some questions and then move to the next speakers. All right. So for now, I'd like to call on Judith Okonkwo, to take up the mic. Judith, over to you. And thanks for being here.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening, everybody. It's a real pleasure to be here with you all,
Good
and
evening.
particularly to be speaking about this topic that I think is so critical for us, not just here in Nigeria, but across the African continent. My name is Judith Okonkwo, and I work with the extended reality technology. So I work with augmented, virtual, and mixed reality, and have been focused on doing sort of like whatever I can with my team to develop an ecosystem for those technologies on the African continent. And I provide this as a backdrop for everything that I'm going to say in the next few minutes as when talking about education.
Okay, is this from me?
I think it's Judith's network, I think.
Oh, it's from Judith. Okay. Oh, sorry. So sorry about that, guys. Let's hope Judith makes it back in on time. Okay. While we wait on Judith, I think we had one or two guys who wanted to ask questions. Nikita, are you there? Nikita, if
Yep.
you're there, okay, can you
Yeah,
go ahead
yes.
with your question? Yeah, welcome. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Isaac. Hi everyone. This is Nikita, currently working as a senior tech recruiter in Uber. So I don't have any questions per se, but I do have a little bit of advice for people out there who are trying or students. So if it's fine, I can go ahead and share my perspective as a recruiter working in the tech company and share it with the people who are trying to break into tech or people who are targeting or get trying to like apply for jobs.
Okay. But does that speak to the topic of this evening in particular?
Yeah, I think
Um,
it's
yeah, if it does speak to the topic of this evening, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
yeah, sure. I mean, I just wanted to add a little bit more importance about like folks who are applying for the jobs, obviously people who are trying or going through lot of certificates boot camp and obviously YouTube videos and things like that they are doing and going for it. I just wanted to share my personal experience working with so many job seekers on per day basis is that once you are trying to get any um, like sign up for any courses, degrees or anything, just try to make sure that you understand that if that course is relevant or if that education or certificate something like that will add value or you can gain a lot of experience or skills from that, and then you can go through the recommendations and even like on the Coursera, Udemy and everything, you have a lot of free courses, so you can go through them, but try to see like if people have signed up for them, people have read through it, people have given a lot of recommendations whether those courses are great. So I think that will help you to understand better about those courses and will give you more leverage, and then you can sign up because money is spending money is one thing, but spending time is also very, very important. So before you invest time, just make sure that those courses are relevant and you can get lot and lot of advice from those courses. Just wanted to add that. Thanks a lot for having me and thanks a lot for letting me speak.
Thank you, Nikita. Thank you for that perspective about job seeking. That was pretty valuable. Thank you very much. I'm trying to see if Judith is back. I can't seem to find her here. So we'll just go to our next speaker, and hopefully Judith joins us very soon. All right. So the next person I'm gonna call is actually someone whose um, whose articles I've actually enjoyed over the years. From his days at tech points, which many people have since described as the tech crunch of Africa, and um, and then his journey from tech points to tech crunch, where he's actually blazing trails and breaking some of the most important technology news across Africa. Someone I've personally watched over the years, and his dexterity with words is quite commendable, and it's great to have him here with us tonight. And that's Tej Kenel Kafor. So Tej, welcome on board. Thanks for joining us again. It's great to have you here. So I'm just gonna bring you on right away. You have the floor now. Welcome, and please go ahead.
Thank you, Isaac, for the introduction and the kind words, I guess. So I think I really don't know what to add to what Fola has said. He kind of did a good job to detail
Yeah,
what needs to be. Can you hear me?
absolutely. We can hear you
All right.
very clearly. Yes.
Yes. So from like immediate perspective and like having reported, um, about Nigerian and African startups like in EdTech, FinTech, and the likes for almost 3 years, I think EdTech is kind of coming of age, and it's like in its own right. Like over the years, we've not really seen the emergence of EdTech startups. So like the startups before, like prep class, tutorial, and like they prepared um, people for work or jam, and all those things, or to connect like an online marketplace to connect tutors with students, and they, they made progress, right? But it wasn't in the kind where you see like fintech startups like Flutter or Paystack, raising multiple millions of dollars and all that. So last year was, a good year for edtech startups. ULessing, Edukoya, um, early this year to old school, and we're kind of seeing like a trend where investors are taking note, edtech startups in Nigeria. And I think it's because the kind of solutions they are providing is not necessarily different from what has been provided in the past, let's say from 2015 up to like 2018. But the market is kind of getting ready for it in the sense that more people, have cheaper, not cheaper internet per se, they can access the internet, better and faster than before with their smartphones, right? There is this, how do I put it? Like people are now more comfortable learning from their smartphones, right? Students, can get their hands on smartphones um, earlier than they could in the past, right? And for Educare, for instance, right, the platform helps like senior secondary school students prepare for WIC and JAM, and they've had like crazy numbers in terms of downloads and all that. ULessing at first started with a dongle where they would preload lessons and all that to give K-12 students, and it pivoted to um, to a model where they connect tutors with different students, like 1,000 students, right, to learn at once, and it's going well for them. So I think there's a better infrastructure now in terms of internet, right, where these edtech startups can take off. But I don't think we're there yet. There's still challenges around internet, around smartphone availability and affordability, right. I think one of the questions around edtech is how you can make education more affordable and more accessible, right? Or quality education also. So I think these platforms give quality education. It's just the problem of affordability because you have to have a smartphone, you have to have good internet to access them, and just a few people, maybe the people like on this space, and a few handful of people in Nigeria can do that. Can do that. I think there was a stat I read around 80% of people in sub-Saharan Africa, don't really have access to affordable internet. So there's like a long way to go for edtech to really, touch the lives of many people, right, in Nigeria and Africa as a whole. I think ULessing has a few thousand, like maybe six-figure users or up to 1 million. It requires around that range too, right? So there's a lot of growth for these startups, and a lot of students to meet, to reach and all their platforms. So there's still like a long way for edtech to go, but I think it's we are at that age or at that time, that period where investors are taking notice of these startups, and I think it's a call for action for people who want to build solutions around this space. And one thing I'll add before I drop the mic. So for instance, old school, right? The platform that tries to teach people that don't know how to code, how to code right, and introduce them to the world of software development, even if they don't have any previous experience to it. So it's like I think around $20 for an application fee. I think that's around 10,000 to the school. So you take like a 9 month class, which is kind of free, and by the end of the 9 months what's it called, school, you get a 3 month internship with these startups where you know you train, or you get trained as a software engineer, junior software engineer, right? Then you get a job. Then when you get your first job, you pay dollars, right, for the program you did at all school, that kind of thing. So it's like giving students, right, a free education, right? But when you get a job, because it's software engineering, right? It's software dev, you kind of guarantee there's 90% chance you get a job, right? So I think that's a new part where people should look at, like when you're trying to build tech solutions, and not the traditional method that we've grown accustomed to, maybe maths, English, and all that, trying to provide solutions around it. But other skills that are outside of the traditional conventional classroom.
Mm, mm. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Tate. That was pretty insightful. Thank you so very much. So I'm just gonna call. Judith is having some network issues, but she'll join us right back very shortly. She's trying to switch network service. All right. So, but before then, we would have our next speaker, um, and that's Toyosi. Yeah, Toyosi is he is a multi-talented guy who does a lot in the content space, storytelling, which is something that Affiliate is very big on. And of course, his passion basically shines through every time he shares um, on education and things revolving around education. All right. So, Toyosi, thank you for joining us. It's great to have you here. And yes, you have the floor. Is this your cap in real life, by the way?
Okay, thank you very much, Isaac. So there was a mistake. First off, I started my account anonymously, so this dude on the picture isn't even me. All right.
Oh, I
Yeah. So there's been
see.
a lot of confusion on my WhatsApp. Like, oh, are you serious? But that's aside, anyways. Thank you very much for
All right,
inviting
welcome.
me. All right. My name is Toyosi. I'm a core member serving Nasarawa, and I think this discourse is very important because I mean, I grew up in Lagos, but when I got to Nasarawa, I realized that there's a disconnect in the education system
Yep.
between urban places like Lagos and not so urban places like Nasarawa. People are not so enticed by education and its benefits over here. I'm teaching, and it's somehow very difficult to even talk to people. But yeah, I believe that EdTech is the future, all right, of is one the future of education in Nigeria, all right. As it stands, education using technology for education in Nigeria is already a thing. One of my friends recently graduated from the School of Politics in Abuja, and the entire 8 months for the classes were done online. All right, so it's something that is very, very um, um, applicable. Okay, and particularly, I think the people one of the reasons why um, EdTech is important is because it will serve as a bridge, all right, for between those who are in the urban areas and those who are in the um, not so urban areas like Nasarawa, for instance. You come to the school and you are struggling to teach them in classes. They don't understand, and some of them actually do not even. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello, are you there? Okay, I don't know if you can hear me. Hello. Okay, yeah, thank you. All
We
right,
can hear
so
you.
all right, thank you. Okay, so they go to I come to school and some of them can't even understand what I'm teaching you. You have to now I have to get a translator in the class, and when I say something in English, he translates in Hausa or you know Alago, the popular language. So it's a very very big problem, and we can't really achieve a lot with that kind of method. But I believe that with the initiative of people, brands like AfriTech and a few other, EdTech um, companies that Tej mentioned earlier, I believe that a lot can be done in bettering our education system. I went through the through AfriLens website and I saw the numbers and I realized that first of all, a lot can be done more, can be harnessed. I believe that I don't know about the plan for AfriLens, but I think the North is something is somewhere they should look into. The goal is to reach out to Africa, all right, to spread education easy to Africa in general. I feel like you should reach out more to a lot of people in the north because the disconnect is just obvious. From the teachers to the parents to the students, the parents don't even value education. They prefer their children to go to farm markets than to come to you know the school. So the team at Afriland, I feel like one of the things that many edtech industries, especially those targeting secondary and primary school like Afriland, I think they should work towards in the Nigerian context now. I think they should work towards targeting students in the north. All right, we have brilliant minds here. We have really, really brilliant minds here, and some of them are willing to learn, but the facilities are not there. All right, one, the facilities are not there, and two, many of them are not even aware of um online education. I had to start introducing stuff like that to them, and it was more like the first time they were getting knowledge, of that. So I think people, brands like Afriland should look into that. Then another thing I would like to say is um just a minute, please. Yes, another thing I'd like to say is, the world is getting digitalized, and the future of education is beginning to get, is beginning to require digital technology. All right, and so the gospel that we should preach, and it's the gospel I've always preached, is the use of the digital world to learn and to earn. All right, and I'm grateful that AfriLearn is doing an amazing job by um, utilizing the digital world to teach. I've gone through their website, and I think the methods they are using are actually nice. If those videos can be, you know, dispensed to places, because I mean, for people, places like Lagos, all right, they can have people can have easy access to those videos, but it's kind of hard, you know, to get them in certain areas like in North and in some places in the West, and of course even in the East. And since we are looking at Africa in general, even in some African countries, do you understand? So I feel like the team at AfriLearn and other edtech companies can work towards spreading this amazing and fantastic means of education across the continent. I'm a strong believer of the need for education and the impact of education in um, growing a very, very vital continent, a very vital country, an impact filled country. And I commend the good work of AfriLen. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Seriously Godwin. Thank you very much. Good to really hear you. That was very good. It's even very insightful to hear from someone in that part of town, and what I mean the northern part of town, where we know that there's need for a lot more work than what we currently have ongoing in this part, that's in Lagos and in the west as well, and even majorly in the south. Thank you very much. And thank you also, I think, to the other speakers that spoken earlier, to Target, thank you so much. Target, that was very insightful as well. And then for Lino as well, thank you so much. I think that was like the shortest and one of the most enlightening conversation I've heard recently. I would like to even share one or two things, but before that, I think it would just be a good idea to hear one or two people ask questions. I know we have one or two people raise up their hands already. We have Ejiogu. I hope I pronounced that right. You're asking a question. So I think it's a good time to, if you're ready with your question, you can just basically speak right now. Just unmute yourself and speak, Ejiogu.
All right. Thank you very much, Isaac.
All right.
My name is
This is
Ujogu
Ejiogu.
Uche
Go ahead.
Austin. My name is Ujogu Uche Austin, and I live in Abuja. I
Okay.
am an edu consultant for an edtech firm, and
Yeah.
I've been working with this company for a year now. And edtech is still not picking up steam if you look at areas like fintech, for example. So the latest statistics for e-learning in Africa at the moment is it's a $2 billion market. Uh, but if you compare it to worldwide market, it's almost 1% because currently the market for edtech worldwide is about 200 and something $billion. And so I've been working in this space for a year, and what I've discovered is that because I do B2B strictly, I do B2B strictly. So what I've discovered is that a lot of schools at the base level, a lot of schools are still finding it very difficult to fully adopt the use of mobile devices. And that's because their fears are justified. And their single fear is the fact that they can't control what students would use some of these mobile devices for, and so it's been a serious topic for me. It's been a serious issue for me trying to figure out a way that we can build confidence of some of these schools. And when I talk about schools, They're private schools, guys that pay over $1 million plus every academic session, and so still having issues, big confidence issues, deploying mobile devices, into their learning and development activities. And so I would really like the discussions here to also focus on that aspect. So I've been looking for ways to find out how we can adopt parental guidance, how we can boost the confidence of some of these schools to deploy mobile devices. It may shock you that I've spoken with over 50 schools, and only one school is confident enough to use mobile device. And so this has been a challenge for me as somebody in this space, and I like to know what ideas you may have, or any of your speakers may have, to combat this particular issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ejogo. Thank you very much. I know that I want to say one or two things on about. I would like to ask if any of our speakers, Tradi, Fola, or two, has anything to say to that first. If you guys have any response to that question. If not, okay. All right.
It would be nice to have Fola respond to that actually. Fola, I know.
Hi, sorry if you could be kind enough to repeat the question. I'm not sure I got it very well. That's why I was reluctant to say anything.
Okay, Ejogo, do you want to quickly do a recap of the question?
Yes. Thank you very much. So I was basically saying that I've been in this space, for the EdTech space, for a year plus now, and because I do B2B, one of our biggest challenges has been the fact that a lot of schools, I live in Abuja, a lot of schools here in Abuja, private schools, pay big money. One of the biggest issues is that they are not yet confident to deploy mobile devices in their schools for students to use. And guys like Microsoft have, approached some of these schools, and nothing has come out of it in terms of usage of mobile devices. So is there an idea or a way that one can, combat this particular issue? Because I feel like this issue is a big issue if you look at the deployment and adoption of tech in our education space. Thank you.
Good question. And of course, I mean, without doubt, there are certain barriers to, achieving the potentiality that comes with, the use of tech in education. But I think it's also very important to put a bit of context into what technology means. And when we talk about technology, I think because of the day and age that we live in, the first thing that comes to people's minds are like big tech, like super sophisticated stuff, Web3, and the likes, on and on. But bearing in mind also that for some of these communities which require access to quality education the most, have never had, any semblance of the basic form of technology. So again, let me say, for instance, that you know going as far back as primordial times, when people had to engage in some forms of agriculture, and used plow for farming and all of those things, by simply devising ways in which people can move water, for irrigation purposes from point A to point B, in itself is technology. So having that understanding, basically, that technology is in phases, helps, to set a very realistic goal around how it's to be deployed. All right, having that understanding first and foremost is very critical. So for say a local community that has never had, say, maybe access to electricity in 10 years, it wouldn't make sense to just go to that community and deploy handheld devices. I mean, they wouldn't be able to utilize it, to the best of, the purpose to which it's intended for. Now, a smarter approach, for instance, would be to use, in quotes and unquote, the basics. So imagine calling all the kids in one local community, okay, getting a small, solar powered platform, and then getting a projector and then just projecting it across a wall, okay, so that all those kids can have access to a cinematic view of a learning experience. You have basically deployed the use of technology to bring access to education to a lot of kids without necessarily placing handheld devices, on their hands or in their palms. So I think it's important that we take off the barriers. These barriers exist, and I'm not negating the fact that they exist, but I think it's also critical that we are very realistic in how we approach some of these things. Because if we keep emphasizing some of the barriers, then it may impede our ability to respond adequately to them. So I think having tailored approaches to addressing some of these issues is very important. And again, I'll give another second example. So there may be community B who, on the other hand, has had the privilege of having electricity. So they know what electricity is, but they just never have had so much of formal education. Now, to go to that community and give them laptops and give them handheld devices and smartphones and say, oh, but you guys already have electricity, so you should have an idea of what these things are. Again, that might be counterproductive. So a more nuanced approach would be one that says, okay, so since you guys have had access to electricity, you know what some of these things are. How about we integrate them in your local language? Okay, so imagine placing handheld devices in Yoruba, Hausa, and Igbo in people's hands. You have brought education closer to them in such a way that they are able to relate directly with it without necessarily taking away the smartness and technology in the process. So again, just to wrap up, it's important that we deploy these technological solutions in ways that are peculiar to specific contexts rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. I hope all of this has made some sense in some ways. Thanks.
Oh, thank you so very much, Olaf. That was very insightful. Absolutely spoken actually. And I hope as your questions or at least gives some good insights to it. Okay, so we'll just go straight to the next speaker before we then open the floor for general questions. And do not forget that we actually have a massive announcement to make, so don't go anywhere. It's something that's no matter what you do in the education space, you'll be really excited about it. All right, so without much ado, let's bring up I'd like to bring up oh wow, connecting again. I'd like to bring up Judith. Judith's home for Judith. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, requested. Oh, great. Approved. Sorry, Judith's coming in shortly. I will be with us shortly. Okay, hi Judith. Can you hear me now? Oh,
See if it holds.
it happens. It happens. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. All right. So you have the floor.
Okay.
Can't wait to hear from you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I know I missed quite a bit. So tell me if like the same sort of like guidelines still stand in terms of just introducing and giving some thoughts on EdTech, and then
Definitely. We've had some questions answered. We've had some thoughts fielded and all that.
okay.
But of course, please go ahead with your thoughts around education and how technology can help solve problem in Nigeria.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to be probably rehashing a little bit what I was saying before because I'm not quite sure where I dropped off. But the points that I did want to emphasize were, I think we all know about the situation when it comes to education in Nigeria, across much of sub-Saharan Africa and the global South in general. Re-emphasizing the point that Isaac made, I think if you were to devote sort of like our entire budget to education, I still don't think we have enough in terms of financial resources to be able to have enough schools of the right quality, enough trained teachers, and all of that to educate our children. I had also mentioned the fact that the projections for Nigeria population-wise, in just 28 short years, 2050, is that we'll be the third most populous country in the world. And I think that when you think of that, that it should give you cause for concern. It certainly gives me cause for concern. And that's for a number of reasons. One is, if we continue on the trajectory that we're on right now, in terms of the amount of people that we're not able to provide quality education for, I think that we will have, a lot of people that we have given sort of like no tools whatsoever to succeed in today's world. And if they don't have that, the big thing then becomes, what are they going to do? The other thing that's linked to that for me is the fact that, as we project that this continent with its young, rapidly growing population is in 20 years, in 15 years, going to be the workforce of the future and of the world. What happens when that workforce doesn't have the skills to get the job done? And we can, look around easily and just see the rapid advancements in technology. If we look over the last 2 years, we can also really see the ways in which, when the world shuts down in one way, people are relying on these technological tools in another way. So what does that all mean? And for me, I think that when we sort of like come back home, the question then becomes, how can we make sure that, given all of this, we are educating people, and perhaps in untraditional ways, right? So we will try and get students into schools. We will try and obviously improve the schools. We will try and train more teachers. We will like do all of that. But we now have interesting tools that allow us to start tackling the educational problem, in new ways, and we have to leverage those. And I think just as I was coming in, I think I got the last speaker talking about doing things like, setting up a space with a projector, and creating an environment for people to learn in. Obviously, you all on this call hopefully know about AfriLearn's app and the fact that, with a mobile phone, you can have access to all of this learning content. What is exciting about this is that we are now at a time when we can say, yes, Nigeria might have over 10 million students, children who are out of school, because not students yet, like we haven't let them get access to education in the right environments. But can we now flip this around and take school to them? And what does that look like? That learning in this sort of like on-demand manner, where they can, even if like there are all of these different constraints and obstacles, and there will be all of these different ways in which we might try and think, oh, is it something cultural? Is it something economic? What sort of policies, what sort of initiatives do we need to tackle that? That as those are happening, we can make sure that some learning is getting down to every last child in some way, shape, or form. And I think really, if we're to move the education needle in a meaningful way, that's something we have to key in on. The other thing that I find really exciting when I think about EdTech is the fact that, if you think back to sort of like 20, 30, 40 years ago, there's this whole push. We have to get children into schools, right? We have to get children into schools. And of course, it's very important to get children into schools and children learning. But there was a push to increase the number of students. There wasn't the same emphasis on learning outcomes. And so, I think we all know of examples of places where you'll have people who are in school, but they're not necessarily learning what they should learn. And for me, a really interesting like elements that must be leveraged with EdTech is that you are able to create content that is challenging, that really drives opportunity to learn in all of these new ways for students, and that actually like drives them towards the sort of learning outcomes that they should have, perhaps even surpassing the standards that you would have in a typical school. And I think this is phenomenal, right? Because I think if you want to, sort of like draw parallels, you can just look to the way sort of like young people, young adults have been learning in the last decade and a half. People who have been playing in spaces like the technology sector, they might not have gotten what they needed from traditional schools, but they were able to leverage online resources to learn in, ways that have completely changed, I think, the impression and the reputation of technical talent continent. So very, very excited to see this kind of change impacting students at all and potential students at all levels within the country. Can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow. I don't want to say I've been thinking in those lines even before you started, but it's just a testament to the fact that we share the same challenges, and of course we have to think through things to solve problems, whether the government is interested in solving them or not. Thank you so much for that perspective. Gabriel, do we have are we taking questions now? Okay, Gabriel, are you there? All right. Okay, so we'll basically take questions now. So if you have questions, please feel free to request, and then we're gonna bring you right in. We're gonna bring you right in. So let me check. Do we have some requests? Yeah, feel free to make your requests, and then we'll take your questions immediately. But while that is coming in, let me just ask a few questions. I have a few questions I'd like to throw to our speakers, Sage, Josie, Judith. Um, Basically, and the first would be about um, it really be about the role of government, what we think. Because yes, we are trying to entrepreneur our way out of most of our challenges. But is it really possible? And if it is possible, are there still ways that the government can still or may still come in to actually make these a little more effortless than it normally should be? And how can we get them to actually do this? So I would put that to Sage for a start.
Yeah, so I don't think we can, entrepreneurship our way out of the tech problems, right? Like the government has a huge role to play. Right. I don't like it's not possible to make Nigeria and EdTech, thriving without the government's input. So, from then we need infrastructure, to make EdTech fly, like internet and making smartphones cheap and all that, because it's basically their work to do that. Any startup, right, or startups that take that upon themselves to do, it's not scalable for them, and they will kind of run huge losses. So it's in a way the government has to play its part, right? In India, for instance, um, which is like the largest edtech in the world, is from India. Um, they're able to scale the way they're scaling because of the efforts like telcos and the government have, the efforts they put in India, right? Where like the telcos, the kind of subscriptions they have is very affordable to even the very low income people, right? To access the internet. But we don't have those kind of plans, for instance, from MTN or Blue or Airtel in Nigeria. So, yeah, the government has a part to play, but also, I mean, the government work in hand with telcos to make internet more affordable to the grassroots, right? And also, with phone manufacturers to make smartphones affordable. Or I mean, since the schools, like we've tried to get them to build schools for so long, good schools or train teachers, and that one is not forthcoming, right? Not anytime soon. But if they can improve on that front too, it's also going to help like a lot, right? And it's going to like the quality of teachers we will get, the quality of schools, lab, and all those stuff. Yeah, it's going to help a lot. So we can do there's only so much founders and entrepreneurs can do or companies can do. And but like with the help of the government, yeah, we can take that further.
All right, great. Thank you very much for that, Sage. Thank you for that. Okay, so the second question for me really about affordability, because personally, this is something that has affected me even as a child growing up. Of course, born with something I could call a silver spoon, which was lost when I was still very young, and then of course my parents had to practically, give their all to send us to school, you know. And in as much as I was able to wade all of that through and still access education, of course, the best that they could afford, the heartbreaking thing, which is not peculiar to me, which is not common to me, which is actually the unfortunate reality across Africa, is that most of my friends, people I grew up with, and I'm actually talking about something that happened to just myself. Even Gabriel had the same reality. Most of the people we grew up with, actually, when you go, and I'm sure some of us can relate to this also here. Each time I go to the neighborhood where I grew up, I see people who I definitely would call my friends, that we grew up together, still in that neighborhood, languishing away, doing exactly what they used to do decades ago. And when you trace it back, it's all to why they're languishing away, why their lives are wasting away, is basically because they couldn't access quality education at the right time. So we're not just so it's not a question of whether the government should or not. It's actually a question of who are losing because the question of imagine what could be our realities if the dreams of those guys also were unleashed. So my question would then be, how really can we make education affordable? Because the truth of the matter is that those who are providing these resources also are providing them with resources, with money, and they need to get paid. So what's the of course the government would say the government is probably trying its best, but it's just not enough. It's proven that it's not enough. So I'm gonna pose this to Judith. How can we leverage, how can we make education truly affordable? Because what we found at Affiliate, for instance, is that at Affiliate, when we started with a basic subscription of 8,000 naira per month, and we thought that should be a very affordable. But what we found is that we still find parents, who call us and like, oh, I still can afford that money, that amount of money, and different excuses. And when you look really, into it, they are being sincere. They still can afford it, as cheap, as affordable as it seems. So how then do we get to really, really
Hello, Isaac, can you hear me?
I think Isaac went off. Um, but Julie, I didn't know if you got his question already, or should I just wrap up the question?
So let me just check. So I think he was asking, like, how can education be made affordable? Is that right?
Exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay. So let me maybe share some ideas, but to say that if I had the magic solution, I'd probably be a billionaire because I think everybody's trying to figure that out for much of the world. Um, I think there are a few things that we must acknowledge, right? Because he talked about the purchasing power of parents, and
Mm,
talked about the fact that even as reasonably priced as African's products were, there were just some people that cannot afford it, and this is the reality, right?
absolutely.
I think it was kind of like a few short years ago. There was all of this buzz in the news about us becoming the poverty capital of the world or something along those lines. The
Mhm.
fact is, if people are not, well off enough, there are certain things they can't afford. And I think when you look at it from that lens, you then see the really critical sort of like um, relevance, right, of government and of policies and all of that that support learning at various stages. So I'm gonna just kind of like leave that there and then talk about some things I think on the ground locally that actually take up cost, but might not be delivering, the results that we would expect. One particular bugbear for me, for example, is that I see a lot of schools that might have computer labs set up, and this has always been a bit curious. Curious not because schools shouldn't have computer labs, because like, of course they should, but we know that the reality in Nigeria is that you cannot like rely on power from the grid. If you want to have those PCs powered, then you definitely need a generator. And quite a few of those schools will not have generators, or will have generators but will not have the funding to fuel the generators. And you have to sort of like pause and think, okay, so how do we start thinking a bit more creatively about what we do or what sort of resources we use in those environments? And I think that, then you can think, well, okay, if we have this budget allocation for computers, and we know that we're not going to really be able to use them, that they'll be bought and they'll just sit here and gather dust. How about maybe we take that money, we get some solar portables or some sort of solar setup, we get some, tablets or mobiles that can be charged, with solar. And with my hat on, I'd definitely be saying, maybe get some low cost VR headsets, those sorts of things, and then be sure that you can provide those learning experiences and resources for the children, with what's available. So I think that there's an element of us not making the best use of the limited sort of like resources, particularly funding that we have when we're thinking about educating our children. The other side of this as well is, it all is this kind of like cycle, isn't it? Because of course, if the children were educated, then socioeconomic status would would rise up, like they would be able to afford better things for their children, etc., etc. So I think at the end of the day, it is on multiple levels that we're saying, what can we do with the resources we know are available? How can we deploy them more creatively to create much more impact when it comes to learning? How can we look for creative ways to get tools like AfriLearn into the hands of children, wherever they may be, regardless of the financial status of their parents? And then I think for that, we might start to look at creative options like partnering with, I don't know, maybe like telcos or, FMCG companies that are thinking about getting their products or services to the last mile. Is there a way that, there can be some sort of mutually beneficial relationship there where, they want to get something to their customer, but then they can also, alongside that, like provide learning to their children. So much to think about, but just a few thoughts there.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's very insightful, Judith. Thank you very much for that thought. Thank you so much. I'll just while we prepare to round up, I would quickly like to ask everybody, if you have a question, please just make a request to. Hello. Okay, so sorry. I think Twitter must have bounced me off again. I don't know what the issue really is. So please, I'm so sorry about that. So please, if you have any question, you can quickly simply just make a request. Hello, can anybody hear me?